My name's Morgan. Growing up, the difference between me and my twin sister Vivian was like night and day. She was the golden girl, and well, I wasn't, not even close. Our dad, Douglas, a stern university professor with steel gray eyes that could freeze you in place, had his life's work tied up in thick economic textbooks and prestigious lectures. Meanwhile, our mom, Evelyn, was the quintessential housewife dedicated to her perfectly maintained home and family, constantly pushing us to follow in her meticulously planned footsteps. From as early as I can remember, being at home felt more like sitting through a never-ending critique session, where every choice I made was examined under a microscope of disapproval. My chest would tighten each time I walked through that front door, knowing judgment awaited me inside. My parents had crafted an elaborate blueprint for the perfect family, and it definitely didn't include a daughter who wore paint-splattered clothes, sketched constantly, and liked to lose herself in music rather than social gatherings. "Morgan, why can't you be more like your sister?" was my mom's favorite line, usually tossed my way when I showed up at breakfast with my headphones firmly in place, desperate to block out the world and the weight of their expectations. Those words stung every time, like tiny needles pricking my skin. Vivian, on the other hand, basked in the warm glow of their approval, soaking it up like a flower turning toward the sun. "I just don't get why it's so hard for you to put on a nice dress and smile more," she'd say, flipping her perfect blonde hair over her shoulder with practiced elegance. "It would make things so much easier for everyone." Her perfectly manicured nails would tap impatiently against the table as she spoke, the sound drilling into my brain. It was like she was from a completely different planet, one where conformity was oxygen and approval was water. One particularly grueling Saturday, as our family prepared for one of Dad's faculty parties, a total snooze fest dressed up as an intellectual gathering but mandatory appearance for us, I decided to rebel in the smallest way I knew how. My heart pounded with nervous excitement as I put on my darkest eyeliner, carefully rimming my eyes until they looked dramatic and intense, and pulled on a pair of distressed combat boots that definitely did not meet the Thompson family standard of appropriate footwear. "You're not going out like that, are you?" Mom caught me on the stairs, her eyes darting down to my boots as if they were covered in toxic waste. Her perfectly lined lips pressed together in that familiar way that made my stomach clench with a mixture of guilt and defiance. I shrugged, my standard defense mechanism kicking in. "Don't see why not." The leather of my boots creaked slightly as I shifted my weight, standing my ground. She sighed, that long, drawn-out kind that seemed to come from the depths of her soul, the one that said I was the biggest disappointment in her perfectly ordered world. I could almost feel the weight of it pressing down on my shoulders. "Please, Morgan, just this once, can't you try to fit in? Professor Williams from the economics department will be there with his wife. They're very influential." Her voice had that pleading tone that somehow managed to be commanding at the same time. "What for?" "So you can pretend we're the perfect family." I shot back, my voice rising with the frustration that had been building inside me for years. I was tired of the same old song and dance, tired of being the imperfect puzzle piece in their perfect picture. I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not just so Dad can impress his colleagues. "It's not about pretending, it's about showing respect for your dad and his position," she argued, her voice taking on that sharp tone that meant business. Her fingers nervously adjusted the pearl necklace at her throat, a habit she had when she was trying to maintain control. Vivian, overhearing our exchange, came trotting down the hallway, her heels clicking on the hardwood like a judge approaching the bench. Each step seemed to announce her superiority, the sound echoing in my chest. "Mom's right, Morgan. It's not that hard to look decent for one evening. Why do you always have to make things so difficult for everyone?" Her voice dripped with that special blend of condescension and fake concern that only Vivian could perfect. The diamond earrings our parents had given her for her birthday caught the light as she tilted her head, waiting for my response. "Maybe I don't want to be a clone of you, Vivian," I snapped, feeling my face flush hot with anger and hurt. My hands balled into fists at my sides as I tried to contain the emotions threatening to overflow. "Maybe I'm tired of being compared to you every single day of my life." I hated these arguments, hated being compared, but more than anything, I hated feeling like the odd one out in my own home, like some strange interloper who'd accidentally been born into the wrong family. Dad appeared at the bottom of the stairs, his brow furrowed in that way that made everyone instantly fall silent. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Enough," he commanded, his voice firm but controlled. "Morgan, go change now. We're leaving in 10 minutes. The Chancellor will be there tonight, and I won't have you embarrassing the family." His tone left no room for argument. He didn't yell, he didn't need to. The disappointment etched in the lines around his eyes was enough to send me marching back to my room, my heart heavy with resignation. I swapped my beloved boots for bland beige flats and wiped away half my eyeliner, watching my small act of rebellion disappear with each swipe of the cotton ball. As we drove to the party, the car was stony silent except for the classical music Dad insisted on playing because it was culturally enriching and calming. I stared out the window, the trees blurring past in the fading light, each one seeming to rush away from me just as my freedom did. In that moment, my heart aching with loneliness even surrounded by family, I promised myself, someday I'd live a life where no one could tell me what to wear, how to act, or who to be. Someday, I'd be free from the suffocating echo of these expectations. Someday, I'd find the courage to live for myself. My room was the only corner of the house where I could pretend I was somewhere else, anywhere else that welcomed the real me. Unlike the rest of the house, with its carefully curated furnishings and pretentious artwork chosen by my mom. It wasn't much, just 4 walls covered in colorful sketches and indie band posters. But it was my sanctuary, my escape from the reality of my family's crushing expectations. One evening, as I was trying to lose myself in a playlist of my favorite bands, the music flowing through me and loosening the knot of anxiety that seemed permanently lodged in my chest, Dad knocked once sharply and marched into my room without waiting for a response. His face was set in that familiar frown that made my stomach instantly tighten. "Morgan, turn that noise down immediately. And why haven't you studied with Vivian today? You know you both have exams coming up," he said, his voice stern and cutting through my momentary peace like a knife. His eyes roamed disapprovingly over my sketchbook lying open on the desk, filled with charcoal drawings instead of economic formulas. I pulled out one earbud and looked up at him, trying to keep my voice even despite the frustration already bubbling up inside me. The music continued to play softly in my other ear, a small act of defiance. "I've been studying, just not with Vivian. I learn better on my own." My fingers nervously played with the cord of my headphones. "Our approaches are completely different." Dad shook his head, clearly not buying it. His shoulders squared as he prepared to deliver another lecture. "You know the rules in this house. Your sister gets excellent grades, and you should be doing the same. I don't see why you always have to make things so difficult. Your attitude is becoming a real problem, Morgan. It's not about making things difficult," I said, my frustration growing with each passing second. My voice cracked slightly with emotion. "I just don't see why I have to follow Vivian's way of doing everything. Can't I have my own way of studying, my own interests? Is that really so terrible?" He didn't respond to that, just switched his complaint, his eyes now fixed on a photo pinned to my corkboard, me and my friends from the local art class, smiling with paint-splattered faces. "And those friends of yours I saw you with at the cafe yesterday. I don't think they're a good influence. That girl with the blue hair looks completely unprofessional. You should be spending time with my colleagues' daughters. They're more suitable companions who understand proper decorum." His voice carried that unmistakable tone of judgment that made my blood boil. I felt my temper rise, a flush of heat spreading up my neck and into my cheeks. "Suitable for what exactly? For you? Because they talk about economics and pretend to enjoy those mind-numbingly boring university gatherings?" My words came out sharp and bitter, like darts I couldn't hold back. Before he could answer, Mom appeared at the doorway, her voice sharp as she joined in. "Morgan, your dad is right." She stepped into the room, her perfume overwhelming the small space. "Those girls are from good families with proper values. They know how to behave in society. They're the kind of friends you should want if you're ever going to amount to anything." I stood up, facing both of them, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. What if I don't want friends who are picked for me like accessories to match my outfit? What if I want to choose my own friends, choose what I study, or even what I want to be? My voice grew stronger with each word. What if I want to pursue art instead of economics? That's enough, Morgan, Mom said, her tone final, cutting through the air like a guillotine. You know your future is with the university. Your dad has made sure of that. The art thing is a hobby, nothing more. And after you graduate, you'll need to start thinking about settling down properly. We've already discussed this many times. Settling down? The words hung in the air like a life sentence, heavy and suffocating. You mean start thinking about being someone's perfect wife like Vivian? Is that all you think I'm meant for? Living someone else's idea of a perfect life while ignoring everything I actually care about? Mom's face softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. We want what's best for you, Morgan. Following the path we've set out will give you a good life with security and respect. You're being extremely ungrateful. A good life? I repeated, the irony bitter in my mouth as I fought back tears of frustration. Is it a good life if it's someone else's idea of good? If it makes me miserable every single day? No one answered that. They didn't need to. The silence spoke volumes. We all knew there was no point in arguing further. They had their plans carefully mapped out, and they expected me to fall in line, just like Vivian, erasing myself piece by piece until I fit perfectly into their mold. After they left, I sat on my bed, clutching my sketchbook to my chest like a shield, wondering how much longer I could keep suffocating my true self before there would be nothing left of me at all. Vivian and I were like two sides of the same coin. We are always together physically, but never on the same page mentally or emotionally. At the prestigious university where Dad taught and held significant influence, the differences between us grew even more painfully obvious. She was into business management, the golden child, always nodding along in lectures, asking smart questions that made professors nod appreciatively, her leather-bound planner filled with perfectly organized notes and color-coded tabs. Me? I was stuck in the same program, but it felt like wearing a shoe on the wrong foot, awkward, uncomfortable, and just plain wrong. Every economic theory might as well have been in a foreign language for all the meaning it held for me. I'd doodle in the margins of my notebooks, creating intricate designs and tiny portraits while my mind wandered to the art classes I wished I could take instead. One afternoon, as I trudged through a mountain of textbooks in the library, my eyes burning from staring at graphs and formulas that refused to make sense to me, Vivian breezed in like a fresh wind, her cashmere sweater perfectly pressed, her notes organized in color-coded folders, her smile ready and practiced. Hey Morgan, you coming to the study group tonight? Professor Hall mentioned he's dropping by to give some insider tips on the final. Could be good for us to show face, she said, her tone light but insistent as she set her designer bag on the table. The expensive leather made barely a sound, unlike my frayed canvas backpack covered in hand-drawn designs. I glanced up, feeling the weight of her expectations pressing down on me like a physical force. My stomach knotted with familiar dread. No, I don't think so. Those things aren't really my scene, you know. I can't stand another 3 hours of competitive brown-nosing. She frowned, placing her books down with a thud that matched her disapproval. The sound echoed through the quiet library, drawing glances from nearby students. It's not about it being your scene, Morgan. It's about making the right impressions on the right people. You need to start taking this seriously. We're graduating soon, and Dad can't pull strings forever. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped impatiently on her economics textbook. I shrugged, turning back to my notes, which were more doodles than actual information. A small sailboat I'd drawn seemed to be trying to escape off the edge of the page, much like I wished I could. I am taking it seriously, just not in a way that makes me completely miserable. Why bother pretending to be passionate about something I hate? Because, Morgan, sometimes you have to play the game to get ahead. You think I like all of this? She gestured around at her perfectly tabbed textbooks and color-coded notes, frustration edging into her voice. It's not about liking. It's about doing what's necessary to secure your future. That's what adults do. I shook my head, pushing back my chair with a scrape that felt like a small act of rebellion. Well, maybe I'm tired of doing what's necessary according to everyone else's definition. Did you ever think of that? Maybe I want to find my own path. Her voice softened, but her eyes remained hard as polished stone. Morgan, I'm just trying to look out for you. Dad's not going to be around to sort things out forever. What are you going to do if you keep alienating everyone who matters? Your art won't pay the bills. Maybe I'll figure it out on my own. Maybe I don't need to follow Dad's roadmap or yours. I shot back, feeling a surge of defiance coursing through me like electricity. Maybe there's more than one way to live a successful life. Vivian sighed, her frustration clear in the tight set of her shoulders. You're so stubborn it hurts. Just try, okay? Show up tonight and talk to Professor Hall. It won't kill you to make an effort for once. I looked at her and saw not just my annoyingly perfect sister, but someone who actually cared in her own misguided way. Behind her perfect facade, there was a flicker of genuine concern that made my resolve waver. Fine, I'll think about it, I conceded, not ready to promise more. My fingers absently traced the outline of the sailboat on my page. Thank you, she said, her smile returning like the sun breaking through clouds. It's not that bad, you know. You might even like it if you gave it a chance. They're discussing investment strategies for emerging markets. Doubt it, I muttered under my breath. But I knew I'd lost this round. For Vivian, I'd show up, sit through another boring discussion, and nod at the right times. It was just a few hours, I told myself. How bad could it be? As it turned out, not as bad as I thought. Professor Hall was surprisingly interesting when he wasn't lecturing from a podium. I even asked a question about economic impacts on arts funding, which earned a shocked but pleased look from Vivian. Later, as we walked back to our dorm under a sky filled with stars, Vivian nudged me with her elbow, a genuine smile on her face. See? Not so terrible, right? You actually participated. For that brief moment, the wall between us didn't seem quite so high or insurmountable. That fragile peace didn't last long, however. In our last year, Vivian introduced us to her fiance, Wesley, a corporate lawyer 10 years her senior, already well established with a corner office and the kind of confident smile that came from never having to worry about money. He was exactly what our parents had dreamed of for their daughters. Mom and Dad were over the moon, practically glowing with pride as they praised Vivian for making such a strategic match, and immediately turned their expectant eyes on me like searchlights seeking out a fugitive. Now, Morgan, it's your turn to find someone suitable, Dad said one evening over a dinner that felt more like an inquisition. His tone implied that my time was running out, like some invisible clock was ticking down the seconds of my worth. The crystal glasses clinked too loudly in the silence that followed. Mom nodded enthusiastically, her eyes bright with plans, already mentally arranging my future as if it were another one of her well-organized home projects. Think about your future, dear. You need someone who can provide for you, who has good standing in the community. Wesley has a friend at the firm who's single. Perhaps we could arrange something? I remember staring at my plate, the food turning to ash in my mouth, feeling the walls of the dining room close in around me like a beautifully decorated prison. My fingers gripped my fork so tightly my knuckles turned white. The thought of being passed from my parents to some unknown man like a business transaction made my stomach turn. Vivian's wedding was meticulously planned down to the last detail by Mom, from the exorbitantly priced bridesmaids' dresses to the imported floral arrangements, showcasing her perfect vision of family prestige. I stood beside my sister in a dress that felt like a costume, smiling until my face hurt, while inside I was screaming. After her wedding, Mom often visited Vivian in her new luxury home, doling out advice and ensuring her life played out just as she had orchestrated, like a puppet master pulling invisible strings. I watched my sister's spontaneity and laughter slowly fade with each passing week, replaced by a polished veneer of perfection. Witnessing this transformation, I knew one thing for certain with every fiber of my being. I didn't want my life tailored by someone else's hands. The thought of it made me feel like I was drowning in the open air. One crisp autumn day, I was walking aimlessly through the arts district downtown, lost in thoughts of how to escape the life my parents had mapped out for me. My student loan debt weighed heavily on my mind, making me feel trapped even as I yearned for freedom. That's when I heard it, the deep, rumbling growl of a motorcycle approaching, the sound vibrating through my chest like a second heartbeat. Curiosity pulled me toward a small gallery where a crowd had gathered around what appeared to be a metal sculpture exhibition. That's when I saw him, Ryder, with his worn leather jacket and carefree smile that seemed to promise adventure, arranging a striking metal sculpture that caught the light like living fire. His strong, skilled hands moved with surprising gentleness over the twisted metal forms. Our eyes met across the room, and something electric passed between us, making my heart skip and then race. He moved toward me with easy confidence, wiping his hands on a rag. "You look like someone who appreciates art that breaks the rules," he called over to me, a playful twinkle in his deep blue eyes. "What do you think of this piece? Too aggressive or not aggressive enough?" He gestured to a sculpture that seemed to be simultaneously breaking apart and coming together. I hesitated, glancing from the fascinating metalwork to his face, noticing the small scar above his eyebrow and the intensity in his gaze. What did I have to lose by talking to him? "It's passionate," I replied, my voice stronger than I expected. "Like it's fighting to break free from something. I really like how the metal catches the light, makes it seem alive somehow." His face broke into a genuine smile that transformed his features. Exactly what I was going for. Most people just see the chaos, not the intention behind it. He extended his hand to me. "I'm Ryder. These are my pieces." "I'm Morgan," I replied, feeling a blush warm my cheeks as our hands touched. His palm was rough with calluses, honest hands that created rather than just theorized. After the show closed, he offered to show me his workshop. "It's not far from here. I've got some pieces in progress that don't fit the gallery's commercially viable requirements." He made air quotes around the words, his disdain for artistic compromise clear. "I like that," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. Climbing onto the back of his motorcycle later that evening, I felt a rush of adrenaline as we sped away from the gallery, from expectations, from the life I was supposed to want. The wind whipped through my hair, and for the first time in a long time, I laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep inside me that had been silent for too long. Ryder shouted something about showing me his world, and I held on tighter, my arms wrapped around his solid warmth, not wanting this moment of pure freedom to end. His workshop was an old converted warehouse space, filled with metal sculptures in various stages of completion. Sparks flew as he demonstrated welding techniques, the fire reflecting in his eyes as he shaped metal with the same passion I felt when drawing. Over pizza ordered from a local place, Ryder told me about his life as a welder turned metal artist, his passion for motorcycles he customized himself, and his love for open roads and unlimited horizons. "Don't you get scared living like this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, my eyes taking in the unconventional beauty of his living space, half workshop and half home. "Without a safety net? Scared?" He looked up, his expression thoughtful. "No, it's thrilling. You never know what's around the corner, what you might create tomorrow, who you might meet." His eyes held mine intently. "Isn't that better than having everything planned out for you? Having the adventure written before you've lived it?" His words resonated through me like a bell being struck. Over the next few weeks, we met whenever we could. Each ride on Ryder's motorcycle, each visit to his workshop, each conversation about art and passion and purpose pulled me further from the life I was supposed to live and closer to the life I desperately wanted. The speed, the creativity, the freedom, it wasn't just about the thrill. It was about feeling truly alive, about being seen for who I really was for the first time. One evening, as we watched the sunset from the roof of his building, the sky painted in fiery oranges and deep purples that no artist could perfectly capture, Ryder turned to me, his expression serious but tender. "Morgan, I don't just create art to make pretty things. I create to feel alive, to make every moment count, to transform the ordinary into something meaningful. With you," his voice softened, "every moment feels like it's worth something, Like it matters. I leaned into him, my heart beating fast, feeling more myself than I ever had before. I've never felt like this before, I admitted, my voice catching. You make me feel free to be who I really am, Ryder. Not who someone else wants me to be. He smiled, pulling me closer under the vast expanse of the darkening sky. Then let's not go back to just existing. Let's live. Let's create something beautiful together, a life on our own terms. As the stars began to appear above us, I felt something inside me falling into place, like the final piece of a puzzle I'd been trying to solve my entire life. 6 months with Ryder felt like a lifetime of moments I'd always dreamed of but never thought possible. We collaborated on art pieces, my designs brought to life through his metalwork, creating something uniquely ours that local galleries were beginning to notice. For the first time, I was following my passion without apology, and the freedom was intoxicating. The day he proposed under a canopy of stars, with the gentle rumble of his bike in the background and the scent of metal and possibility in the air, my heart screamed a yes before my mouth could form the word. Tears of joy streamed down my face as he slipped a ring on my finger, one he'd crafted himself from silver and copper, unique and imperfect and absolutely perfect. It was everything I'd ever wanted, except for one looming hurdle: my parents. I wrestled with the fear of introducing Ryder to them, my stomach in knots whenever I thought about it. He was everything they disapproved of: his rough edges, his wild spirit, his creative yet unstable career as a metal artist and custom motorcycle builder. But love bolstered my courage, and I decided it was time they knew. "Are you sure about this?" Ryder asked me the morning we planned to visit them, his eyes searching mine with concern. "We could just elope, you know. Vegas is calling our name." His attempt at humor couldn't quite mask his nervousness. "I'm sure. They should know who I am and who I love. I'm not ashamed of us," I said, squeezing his hand. The day I brought Ryder home, he was clad in his cleanest jeans and a button-up shirt that couldn't quite disguise the tattoo peeking from his collar. I loved that about him. Even when trying to make a good impression, he remained unapologetically himself. My heart pounded like a bass drum as we walked up the manicured path to the front door, and I could already feel the weight of my parents' judgment pressing down on me. As we stepped inside the immaculate foyer, Mom's face went pale at the sight of Ryder, her eyes widening in shock. She clutched her pearl necklace as if needing something to hold on to. "What in the world, Morgan?" she gasped, her voice barely a whisper, brittle as thin ice. Dad's reaction was harsher, his words sharp as knives as he took in Ryder's appearance from head to toe. "Who is this individual, and why is he dressed like that in our house?" His voice dripped with disdain, each syllable a precise cut. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself, Ryder's solid presence beside me the only thing keeping me steady. "Mom and Dad, this is Ryder," I said, fighting to keep my voice from trembling. He's the man I love. We're getting married." I held up my hand, showing my ring that sparkled in the light, unlike any traditional engagement ring they'd approve of. Their silence was deafening, like the calm before a violent storm. Then Dad turned to Ryder, his tone laced with the kind of condescension he usually reserved for underperforming students. "Married? What exactly do you do for a living, young man? What are your qualifications? Where did you attend university?" Ryder, bless his unwavering spirit, didn't flinch or cower. He stood tall, his voice steady and dignified. "I'm a metal artist and custom fabricator. I specialize in sculptural metalwork and motorcycle customization. I took specialized welding courses after high school and apprenticed under Martin Reeves for 5 years. His pride in his work was evident in every word. "I work with my hands and my heart, and I make an honest living doing what I love." The look on my parents' faces was a theatrical mix of horror and disbelief. Mom actually swayed slightly, reaching for the wall to steady herself. "A welder? A motorcycle mechanic?" Dad's voice rose, anger flaring like a sudden fire. "Morgan, you can't possibly be serious. You expect us to give our blessing to this? To throw away your entire future for a manual laborer?" I felt my resolve harden, anger rushing through me like molten metal. Yes, because he makes me happy. He supports my art. He sees me for who I really am. Isn't that what should matter? My voice grew stronger with each word. Or is your approval conditional on me erasing myself completely? But the life you'll lead. Mom started, her voice tremulous, her perfect makeup unable to hide the distress in her eyes. Will be the life I choose. I shot back, my own voice gaining strength from somewhere deep inside me. A life filled with creativity and purpose and love, not appearances and obligations and empty prestige. Dad shook his head, his decision clear in the hard set of his jaw. We cannot and will not support this nonsense. If you choose this lifestyle, don't expect to be a part of this family. We have standards, Morgan. Expectations. This is not what we raised you for. The finality in his tone broke my heart, but not my decision. Ryder squeezed my hand, giving me the strength to face them, his touch reminding me that I wasn't alone anymore. Then I choose Ryder. I choose us. I choose my happiness and my art and a life that means something to me. Mom's eyes filled with tears, mascara creating tiny rivers down her carefully powdered cheeks, and Dad's jaw clenched so tight I could see a muscle twitching in his temple. If you walk out with him, don't bother coming back. You'll regret throwing away everything we've given you, Dad said, his voice cold and final as a slammed door. As we walked out, the beautiful front door closing behind us with a decisive click, I felt a strange mixture of heartbreak and liberation washing over me. It hurt, of course it hurt, but for the first time in my life, I was choosing my own path, regardless of the cost. Walking away from my parents' house with Ryder, my heart was a chaotic mess of emotions, gut-wrenching pain, unexpected relief, terrifying excitement, and paralyzing fear all tangled together like the wire sculptures in Ryder's workshop. The night air felt different somehow. Each breath I took seemed more meaningful, like each inhale was a step further into a new life I was creating rather than accepting. We rode in silence for a while, and the only sound was the steady roar of the motorcycle beneath us and the rushing wind that caught my tears and carried them away. The vibration of the engine thrummed through my body, matching the tremble in my hands as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. When we finally stopped at a small diner on the outskirts of town, one of those 24-hour places with neon signs and faded leather booths, Ryder turned to me, his face serious, his eyes searching mine. The orange glow from the diner's sign cast unusual shadows across his worried features. You sure about this, Morgan? I mean, really sure? There's no going back after tonight, he said, his voice gentle but concerned. I know how much your family means to you, despite everything. I don't want you to wake up one day resenting me for coming between you. I looked into his eyes, seeing the genuine worry there, and something inside me settled. I nodded, squeezing his hand so tightly my knuckles turned white. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. Being with you, creating with you, this feels right. It feels like what I was always meant to do. They'd never accept the real me anyway. He smiled that reckless, charming smile that had captured my heart the first day we met, relief washing over his features. All right then, let's do it. Let's build our life together, one day at a time. Inside the diner, with its chipped formica tables and smell of coffee and pie, we found a quiet booth in the corner away from the few late-night patrons. The waitress, a woman with kind eyes and a name tag that read Betty, brought over 2 steaming mugs of coffee without asking, sensing perhaps that we needed comfort. So what's first? I asked, stirring cream into my coffee, watching it swirl and blend, transforming the bitter black liquid into something softer. My mind was racing with all the practical concerns I'd been sheltered from my entire life. We'll need to find a place to stay. My workshop has the loft space, but it's pretty basic right now. We can fix it up, make it comfortable for both of us. Then we'll focus on building your portfolio and my client base. I have some friends in the art community who can help us get started, Ryder replied, his tone practical but optimistic. His fingers traced patterns on the table as he spoke, always creating, even in idle moments. It's going to be tough, isn't it? I said, more a statement than a question. The reality of what we were doing, walking away from financial security, family connections, the safety net I'd had my entire life, was beginning to sink in, bringing with it a wave of anxiety that tightened my chest. Ryder reached across the table, his hand covering mine, warm and solid and real. His palm was callous from years of work, so different from my dad's smooth academic hands. "It might be, I won't lie to you," he said, his eyes meeting mine with unwavering honesty, "but we'll handle it together. Tough is nothing new for either of us, right? You've been fighting to be yourself your whole life. I've been building something from nothing since I was 17. We know how to work hard and weather storms." I couldn't help but laugh, a short, sharp burst of genuine amusement that surprised me. Right? Together. The word felt different now, weighted with promise and possibility rather than obligation. We spent hours in that diner, talking and planning our future over endless cups of coffee and slices of homemade pie. Every so often, Ryder would throw out an idea that sounded so wild, so free, so unlike anything I'd ever considered possible, that it made my heart jump with both fear and exhilaration. "And maybe one day, once we're established, we'll save enough to take that road trip across the country, visiting all the quirky art. And maybe one day, once we're established, we'll save enough to take that road trip across the country, visiting all the quirky art installations and metal scrap yards, sketching and gathering materials as we go. Just you, me, and the open road ahead," Ryder said, his eyes bright with visions of the future. We could document the journey, create a series of collaborative pieces inspired by each place. "I like that," I said, allowing myself to dream bigger than I had ever dared before. My mind was already filled with images of vast landscapes and the art we might create together. For the first time, I felt like I was planning a future I actually wanted, not one I was resigned to endure. A journey of discovery, both artistic and personal. A warm feeling spread through my chest as Ryder reached across the table to brush a strand of hair from my face, his touch gentle despite his calloused fingers. In that moment, despite the uncertainty ahead, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. Riding back into the city under a sky filled with stars, we began our search for a new life. The next weeks were a blur of activity, exhilarating, terrifying, and more fulfilling than anything I'd ever experienced. We transformed Ryder's industrial workshop into a proper living space, partitioning off a corner for my art studio where natural light flooded in through the large windows. I strung fairy lights around the metal beams, softening the industrial edges while honoring their raw beauty. Ryder expanded his client base, taking on more commercial welding projects to establish a steady income while continuing to create his metal sculptures. I began selling my artwork online, starting small with digital prints and custom illustrations. Every sale, no matter how modest, filled me with a sense of validation I'd never felt from my parents' grudging approval. Life was challenging in ways I'd never experienced before, counting every dollar, learning to cook for ourselves instead of ordering takeout, discovering the surprising cost of basic necessities. But it was ours. We made do with what we had, and every night when we came home to each other, exhausted but fulfilled, it felt like we had everything that truly mattered. "This piece is really coming together," Ryder said one evening, stepping back from a collaborative sculpture we were creating, my design brought to life through his metalwork. Sweat beaded on his forehead from the heat of the welding torch, but his eyes shone with satisfaction. "Your vision translated perfectly into 3 dimensions." I studied the piece, an abstract representation of breaking free from constraints, my heart swelling with pride. "It's even better than I imagined," I admitted, squeezing his arm. "We make a good team." "The best," he agreed, pressing a kiss to my temple, leaving a smudge of soot that made us both laugh. Months later, we decided it was time to make it official and got married in a small, intimate ceremony at a local sculpture garden. I wore a vintage dress I'd found at a thrift store and modified myself, adding hand-embroidered details that told our story. Ryder wore a simple dark suit with a metal boutonniere he'd crafted himself. We wrote our own vows, promising to support each other's creativity and independence always. I held on to a sliver of hope that my family would show up, that they would see how happy I was and let go of their prejudices. But the chairs reserved for them remained empty, and no congratulatory messages came. The absence stung, a hollow feeling in my chest that I couldn't completely ignore. Despite the sting of their absence, the day was perfect because it was ours. Ryder's mother, Fiona, cried happy tears as she welcomed me into her arms. I always knew Ryder would find someone special, she whispered, her embrace warm and genuine. Someone who sees the world the way he does, full of possibilities and beauty in unexpected places. Over time, I grew incredibly close to Fiona. She welcomed me with open arms, calling me her daughter-in-law from the very beginning, filling the emotional gaps left by my own family's rejection. Her small house became a second home to us, a place where creativity was celebrated rather than dismissed. You know, I wanted to be an artist once, she confided one afternoon as we sat in her garden, sipping tea and sketching the wildflowers she refused to tame. Life had other plans, but watching you and Ryder create together, it heals something in me I thought was long broken. Things were finally looking up for Ryder and me professionally too. After he completed additional specialized training and became a certified underwater welder, his income shot up dramatically to $150,000 a year. The dangerous but highly skilled work took him away for short periods, but the financial security it provided was transformative. That change made a world of difference. We managed to buy a modest townhouse in a vibrant, artistic neighborhood, the kind of place with community gardens and weekend art walks, where creativity flourished and conformity wasn't the highest virtue. It wasn't my parents' definition of success, but it was everything I'd ever wanted. I started working as the creative director at Ryder's growing metal art business, combining my design skills with his technical expertise. We hired 2 apprentices, and I found unexpected fulfillment in mentoring young artists, helping them find their voice just as I had found mine. It wasn't just a job. It felt like I was part of something meaningful, supporting the man I loved while building our creative vision together. On weekends, we'd escape the city on his motorcycle, roaring through winding roads and taking in breathtaking views of mountains and forests. Those moments with the wind in my hair and Ryder's solid warmth against my back were pure bliss, a freedom I'd once only dreamed about, now a regular part of my life. "You're smiling," Ryder shouted over the roar of the engine during one such ride, glancing back at me briefly. "I'm happy," I called back, tightening my arms around his waist, feeling the rumble of his laugh against my chest. The simple truth of those words nearly overwhelmed me with their intensity. Living nearby, Fiona became a frequent visitor to our home, often bringing plants for our small garden or unusual metal pieces she'd found at yard sales that Ryder might incorporate into his work. One such afternoon, while Ryder was in the workshop behind our house finishing a commissioned piece and I was fixing us some coffee in our sun-drenched kitchen, she arrived looking uncharacteristically troubled. "There's been some ugly news making the rounds," Fiona said as she settled down at our kitchen table, her usual warm smile absent. "Something about a professor at Westfield University involved in a harassment scandal. I heard it on the radio on my way over." My heart skipped several beats, a cold wave washing over me despite the warm spring air flowing through the open windows. "Oh? Did they say who it was?" I tried to keep my voice steady, dreading the answer but already knowing deep down. She shook her head, her eyes concerned as she watched my reaction. "No, they didn't mention a name on the radio, but you know how these things go in a university town. It's probably all over the TV and social media by now." She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "I know that's where your father teaches. I'm sorry if I've upset you." Nodding, I flicked on the television in the adjacent living room, tuning into the local news. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the volume. Sure enough, there was a report on the scandal, and as I had feared with a sick sense of inevitability, my dad's face appeared on the screen. The anchor detailed multiple accusations against him from female graduate students spanning years, and I felt a cold wave of disbelief and yet strange validation wash over me. "The university has placed Professor Douglas Thompson on administrative leave pending investigation," the reporter stated, her voice professionally neutral. "Multiple students have come forward as part of the growing Me Too movement on campus. Turning off the TV, I sat down heavily, trying to process the news, memories flooding back of comments I'd heard him make over the years, interactions I'd observed that had made me uncomfortable, but that I'd been taught to ignore. The coffee I'd been brewing boiled over on the stove, filling the kitchen with a burning smell that matched the acid churning in my stomach. Ryder came in, wiping his hands on a rag, and saw my face. His brow immediately furrowed with concern as he moved quickly to my side, turning off the stove as he passed. "What's wrong, Morgan? You look like you've seen a ghost." His hand on my shoulder was steady, grounding. I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper when I finally found it. "It's my dad. He's been accused of sexually harassing multiple students. It's all over the news." The words felt foreign in my mouth, shameful yet not surprising. Ryder's expression hardened for a moment before he knelt beside my chair and took my hand. His eyes, filled with compassion, searched mine. "I'm sorry, Morgan. That's tough news to hear, no matter what your relationship with him is like. How are you feeling about it?" The question was so simple yet so profound. No one in my family would have ever asked how I felt about anything. They would have been concerned about appearances, about damage control, about what people would think. But Ryder wanted to know about my feelings. I shook my head, a confusing tangle of emotions making it hard to articulate any single thought. "I don't know, I'm shocked but..." "Not shocked?" Part of me always knew there was something off about how he interacted with female students. "I saw things." My voice trailed off as memories surfaced of uncomfortable moments I'd witnessed and comments I'd heard. "It's not your fault. None of this reflects on you. His actions are his own," Ryder said firmly, somehow reading the guilt in my expression. I nodded, grateful for his understanding, but still feeling a strange sense of responsibility. "I don't know what to do. Should I reach out to Vivian or my mom? It's not like we're close anymore." He squeezed my hand, his understanding clear. "Whatever you need, I'm here for you. We don't have to figure it all out right now. This is fresh news, and you need time to process." Fiona, who had been quietly giving us space, spoke up. "Sometimes the hardest part of having a difficult family is knowing when to engage and when to protect yourself. There's no right answer here, Morgan. I decided to wait and see how things unfolded before making any moves. Part of me felt I should reach out, offer support to my mom at least, but another part, the part that remembered years of criticism and conditional love, held back. Whatever decision I made, I knew I'd have Ryder by my side, and that was the reassurance I needed to face whatever came next. Life had settled into a fulfilling rhythm until that unexpected afternoon at the gallery where we were showcasing our collaborative work. The exhibit was our most ambitious yet, a series of pieces exploring transformation and rebirth that combined my paintings with Ryder's metalwork. As I was explaining the concept behind a particularly emotional piece to an interested collector, a familiar car pulled into the parking lot visible through the gallery's front windows. I hadn't seen my parents in over 2 years, and the sight of them stirred up a turbulent mix of emotions I thought I had put to rest. My heart hammered against my ribs as I excused myself from the conversation, my mouth suddenly dry. Both of them looked dramatically changed. The scandal had clearly taken its toll. Mom had lost a considerable amount of weight and looked years older, her once perfect hair now streaked with gray and missing its usual polished style. Dad appeared broken, stooped, a shadow of the stern, authoritative man he once was. His tweed jacket, once a symbol of his academic status, hung loosely on his diminished frame. My mom spotted me through the window and rushed toward the entrance, arms outstretched as if nothing had happened, as if years of distance and disapproval could be bridged in an instant. But I couldn't embrace her, not like this, not now. Instead, I stepped back, feeling Ryder's reassuring presence as he moved to stand beside me, his hand gently touching the small of my back. "Morgan, oh Morgan, it was so hard to find you," Mom said, her voice cracking with emotion, her eyes darting around the gallery with a mixture of confusion and disdain at the experimental artwork surrounding her. "We've been looking for you everywhere." Dad, ever the man to cut to the chase, spoke up, his voice harsh and bitter where it had once been commanding. "I was accused unfairly, you know. These girls exaggerated everything. I went to your sister's husband for legal help, but that bloodsucker wanted a fortune up front. Your sister sided with him, if you can believe it, and now they've essentially kicked us out. We need your help." There was no greeting, no acknowledgement of the years of separation, just demands. I stared at them, disbelief and anger swirling inside me like one of Ryder's molten metal pores. The audacity of it struck me speechless for a moment. Help? After all these years, you show up at my gallery opening and demand help? My voice was surprisingly steady despite the trembling in my hands. You didn't even say hello. We have nowhere else to go. Mom's voice was desperate, tears welling in her eyes as she clutched her designer handbag like a lifeline. They've disowned us too, can you imagine? Our own daughter and son-in-law. We thought maybe we could stay with you until this all blows over. We should stick together in times of crisis. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it, the sheer hypocrisy. Stay with me? After you disowned me for following my heart? For choosing a life that made me happy instead of miserable? The gallery had grown quiet, other patrons and the owner watching the drama unfold with uncomfortable fascination. You made it crystal clear I wasn't your daughter anymore when I left with Ryder. Dad's face flushed red, his old temper flaring up despite his diminished stature. You owe us, Morgan, after all we've done for you. The education, the opportunities, all the advantages we gave you. His voice rose, drawing even more attention from the gallery visitors. That's where you're wrong, I interrupted, feeling Ryder squeeze my hand in support, his solid presence giving me strength. I don't owe you anything. Parents give to their children out of love, not as an investment they expect returns on. You threw me out because I chose my happiness over your demands. And now you want what? To just move in and pretend like we're a family again because it's convenient for you? The situation was escalating, the confrontation becoming a spectacle. I could see people whispering, some recording with their phones. Mom started to cry more loudly, her sobs theatrical and attention-seeking. You're being cruel and ungrateful after everything we've done for you, she accused through her tears. I took a deep breath, centering myself, finding a calm clarity I wouldn't have believed possible in the face of their manipulation. No, Mom, I'm not ungrateful or cruel. I'm free and happy. I've built a life filled with creativity, love, and genuine connections. I gestured around at the gallery, at the art Ryder and I had created together. You made your choices, and I made mine. Now you have to live with the consequences of yours, just as I've lived with mine. As we calmly walked away, I heard my dad start yelling about family duty and ingratitude, but Ryder discreetly signaled to the gallery's security guard. Please don't let them disrupt the exhibition anymore. They're not welcome here, he said quietly. That evening, after the last guests had left and we were packing up unsold pieces, the gallery owner approached me. Your work speaks of transformation and healing, she said thoughtfully. Now I understand why it's so powerful. It comes from a place of genuine growth. I smiled, feeling lighter somehow, as if the confrontation had released the last lingering doubts about my chosen path. Art saved me, I said simply. Creating something beautiful from difficult experiences, it's the ultimate transformation. The following months flew by, filled with love, creativity, and a peace I'd never thought possible. Our collaborative work gained recognition in the art community, with commissions coming in steadily enough that Ryder would scale back his underwater welding to focus more on his passion projects. My portfolio expanded into new mediums as I experimented with incorporating metal elements into my paintings, creating textured pieces that quite literally broke the frame. On a perfect spring morning, we welcomed our son into the world, a beautiful, curious baby with Ryder's thoughtful eyes and, already, my creative spirit. We named him Phoenix, a symbol of rebirth and new beginnings for our growing family. Fiona doted on him endlessly, filling our home with handmade toys and children's books about art and adventure. My parents never came back after that day in the gallery. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they'd moved to a smaller town where Dad found work at a community college, their social standing irreparably damaged. Vivian occasionally sent formal Christmas cards with photos of her perfect-looking family, but the warmth of real connection was absent from the glossy prints. But our home was filled with a different kind of family, friends, fellow artists, Fiona, and the apprentices who had become like younger siblings to us. We created a space where creativity was nurtured, where authenticity was valued above appearance, where love was unconditional. As I watched Ryder gently showing Phoenix how metal catches the light, the baby's delighted laughter filling our sun-drenched living room, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. The path hadn't been easy, choosing yourself rarely is, but it had led me here, to this moment of pure, unscripted joy. "What are you thinking about?" Ryder asked me, looking up to catch me watching them, a soft smile on his face. "Just that sometimes you have to break away from what's expected to find what's meant for you," I replied, joining them on the floor. "That the hardest choices often lead to the greatest happiness." He nodded, understanding as always. "And that family is something you can create, not just something you're born into." "Exactly," I agreed, watching Phoenix reach for a colorful mobile Ryder had crafted from recycled metal pieces. "We're creating something beautiful together, not just art, but a life. On our own terms." As the afternoon sunlight streamed through our windows, catching on the metal sculptures that dotted our home and turning them into things of magic and wonder, I knew with absolute certainty that I had found my true path. Not the one that had been mapped out for me, but the one I had dared to forge for myself.